The other mistake a lot of people make is they think they need a lot of money to become rich. But money is not the secret ingredient of becoming rich. It's simply $50,000, $60,000 a year. It was like most of my salary. Like 2/3 of my salary was gone to this rent.
He has scaled his business to over 7 figures and accumulated an investment portfolio of $1.6 million.
You want to be someone who's an action taker, not just a learner.
The money that you're making, a percentage of your money is going to work while you sleep.
Any idiot can make things more complex. It takes a genius to make things more simple. I was like, well, what businesses are going to be around? What businesses are hard to kill? What's going to... And I was like, banks. I flip it, heck, man. You're not going to beat a bank, right? Before the money!
What is up, money makers? I'm Jack William. You are tuned in to another action-packed episode of Before the Money. This is the show where we dive deep into the truth, wins, and lessons of really impressive people doing extraordinary things. Now, there's a couple of sayings that we get thrown at us throughout our development around money. And I'm sure you've probably heard some of these before. Things like money doesn't grow on trees. It takes money to make money. And you could probably finish this sentence with me. Money doesn't buy happiness, right? We've all heard it. And in today's episode, we're going to absolutely crush all those programs. We are going to give you the tools, the mindsets, everything that you need to get your money right so that you only have to get rich once, all right? So before we get into today's episode, just locate that subscribe button on whatever channel you're listening to this on. Leave behind 5 stars, because if you are really passionate and you really mean with good intentions to achieve the things that you've written down on your wish list, your goals for the year, it starts with showing up here every single Wednesday and learning from the people that have done the things that you want to do. All right. So the best time to plant a money tree was 30 years ago. The second best time, you can probably guess it, is right now. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect time to get your money right, today is the day that you take action. So for legal reasons, nothing we say here today is financial advice. However, if you take the experience of my guest to heart, you mix that with a little bit of your own research and sweat equity, I promise you, when we're having this conversation again, your life will be unrecognizable. So what we're going to be chatting about today is incredibly important. Whether you're hungry to build a huge business or whether you just want financial security to take care of your family, money is the oxygen. It is the fuel that allows us to live the life of our dreams, whatever your purpose is. But it also has a negative effect. And there's a couple of statistics that really blew me away. 16% of all suicides are due to financial stress. And 30% of us, 30% have demolished our payments, demolished our checks before we even receive our next paycheck. Now, that sounds daunting. I was definitely taken back when I read these stats, but the good news is 80% of all financial failures are a direct cause of our habits and our actions. All right, that is brilliant, because that means we have 100% control over how these statistics reflect on us. We can flip the script when it comes to money. All right, I know this is an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people, but if we don't find a way to make money in our sleep, we'll work until we die. I know my guest really loves that quote. So let's dive into who this person is, right? Because this money topic, it's complex, but it can be really simplified when you speak to the right people, the people that have done the things that you're wanting to do. All right, so my handsome guest today, he has earned his money in just about every way you can imagine. Employee wages, self-employment, commission only, affiliates, dividends, you name the payment structure, he has lived it. He is the author of 2 of the most controversial books in the finance space, Money Grows on Trees and Money Buys Happiness. I'm holding one right here in my hand. This is a fucking hefty book, right? In partnership with his beautiful wife, he has scaled his business to over 7 figures and accumulated an investment portfolio of $1.6 million, which pays him $80,000 tax-free every year. All right. And this is all very impressive. I know, like you guys, I'm excited to jump into today's learnings. But the real reason why I have invited this person on Before the Money today, that's because all round, he's an absolute gem of a human. He's a goat, all right? On finance, in life, like you're going to see his beautiful smile in a minute. And he could have retired a while ago, but he chooses to show up every single day as the moneymaker that he is, as the example that he is, and he affects his surroundings. One of the things I admire most about this person is he is a true shining light when it comes to impact, all right? His impact ripples into the people around him. So it is absolutely my pleasure and my honor to welcome to Before the Money, the master money maker, the passive income prince, Mr. Money Grows on Trees in the flesh, Lloyd J. Ross. Money buys happiness. Oh, passive income prince, how you doing, brother?
Before the Money! Mate, so good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, how good was
I'm
that?
pumped up. The passive income prince.
I give you full reign
I
to
feel like
use
I'm
that.
going into a fight. Like that's my name.
And in the black couch.
And on the black couch, we have the passive income weighing in at 80,000 passive income. That's funny. Well, awesome intro, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
hey, pleasure
my
to be
pleasure.
here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excellent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Better now?
I'm feeling fantastic. I'm on a nice couch here, talking to you about money, which is a favorite topic, teaching other people, making an impact.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in shorts and loafers,
Oof.
and I'm hard at work.
Yeah.
I love it. It's awesome, man.
I'm in jeans, sweating my ring out.
Yeah, but like, how good is this? Like,
Yeah, 100%, dude. You're in
Crazy.
Electric Sugar. It's a beautiful space. So this is where the magic happens, right?
All right, let's make some magic.
Let's make some magic. So I just finished up helping you with one of your shows, Mind of Money, right? That was last weekend.
Yes, you did.
And
Yep.
the whole premise of that really is just to give people a clear financial literacy and really show people, like, this is more so speaking from experience, what you've taught me is that it doesn't take, as much effort as we think it does to reach that financial freedom status. But by gaining clarity over that, you can build a roadmap. It takes time and it takes consistency, but it's really not this unattainable thing that most of us, without the understanding of money, think it is.
Totally. See, there's two parts to it, because a lot of people, when they think about money, they have it's called math anxiety, because there's numbers involved. They think of school and how they got anxious about math because they didn't understand what was going on. That's most people, right? So when this topic of money comes up and there's numbers, they freak out. And so they really avoid it a lot of the time. And the other mistake a lot of people make is they think they need a lot of money to become rich. But money is not the secret ingredient of becoming rich. It's simply some set behaviors and principles to follow that make you rich. But you can begin that so easily today. And I'll tell you what you do. This is really all it takes. And I've coached a lot of people around wealth and business and so on. And the one thing I've noticed, and we did it at the event on the weekend, right, and people have breakthroughs. Like flipping. I've had people have absolute incredible breakthroughs to tears. Because here's what they do. Ready? Look at your bank account. But look, like, print it out and look at it. And it like, the reason why you did that noise, is because it's just like looking in the mirror.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's actually a reflection of your behavior. And the reason people don't want to do it is because, like, I can't control myself. And that's a really painful thing.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy as well.
Yeah.
The
totally.
things that we say to ourselves magnify out into how we behave, which magnifies out into the results that we get.
Absolutely.
In a huge way. And I learned this the hard way. So kind of halfway through last year, I got down to the point where I was literally between the cracks of my car seat finding coins to keep my car running.
Jeez.
And like the beginning of the year, I thought I was fucking daisies, right? Because I had savings, but those savings dwindle down real quick.
Okay.
They dwindle down real quick, especially when you do have like
spending
money. Yeah. Money habits that you've just kind of built yourself into this, like, I wasn't caring about where my money was going because I was in a period of rapid earning. So when that period died down, I was like, okay, now it's time to tighten the reins. And I did it a little bit too slowly.
Sure, yeah.
I think.
It's a big mistake people make. They get into the land of milk and honey, where you just, you come into these great green pastures of creating income, you're bulletproof, and of course, human nature, the psychology of it is recency bias says that it will continue. And what I've come to learn listening to all the mistakes of people I look up to, the mistakes they've made, my dad and other mentors, the one thing I noticed was good things don't last. They just don't. The world changes. the way business changes, the way the business is, it changes. Consumerism changes. The way you have clients, they decide to do different things. So this amazing income stream you have, it's not forever lasting necessarily. It can last a long time, and a lot of wonderful businesses have done that, but it's uncertain. So because of that, people get into this false sense of security, like what happened to you. We're like, you know what? I'm going to keep making money. It's cool. I'm so good. I've got this. And then a few things change, and all of a sudden you don't have the income coming in. And that then becomes a problem. Now, if you had what you have, which is really smart, a buffer, like some savings, the reason people have those, which is good, is for emergencies, right? But as soon as your income changes, like what happened to you, where you don't adjust the belt and you don't bring in your spending quickly, then all of a sudden your savings become spendings, and that's like your go-to. And they dwindle down very quickly because we all live in a world where the average wage in Australia is $92,000 a year. It used to be 80 not that long ago. So it's 92. So like, you think about that. Most people need 92 roughly to kind of have an average life. So that tells me that life's expensive. And you'll find that those savings would have dwindled away quite quickly.
Very fast.
Very fast, because you have a certain lifestyle. You need to rent, you need to eat food, and we live in an expensive country. So I would suggest you've got to plan for uncertainties, which you did, but I think you learned the lessons of, far out, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, but it forced me to, like you said, get granular with where my money was going.
That's a good word, granular.
I developed a habit, whereas every time I spent money, whether it was cash or card, even down, if I was buying a $3 coffee from 7-Eleven, it went into my tracker app.
Great.
And then, like you said, you opened this podcast with, I could see the mirror standing ugly back at me. I saw the way that I showed up, and I realized, fuck, do I really need to buy something every time I leave the house?
Totally. Isn't that interesting though? You say it is granular. The devil's in the detail when it comes to your money. And the habit you got into, that we all get into, is when we leave the house, we spend money. I have this running joke with my brother, and it's like every time you leave the house, it's $100. Like, everything's $100. That $100. He's like, you know what? I said, what? He goes, I'm not leaving the house. I'm not leaving the house.
I'll just shop online instead.
Yeah, but he's like, if I leave the house, it costs me $100, right? Yeah. You're putting petrol in the car, it's going up. Like, especially right now with inflation, it's ridiculous. Like, even I read yesterday that the inflation figures at the supermarket are 9%. So like, it's expensive to leave the house, but what happened to you is true. You start to actually question your behavior. You say, hang on a second, do I need to spend money? And it's just automatic. People spend money automatically. But until you take a stand, and usually people don't take a stand in time. So like, when people get unhealthy, they have a heart attack first, and they're like, oh, I should change my diet. That's a good idea. But they don't change until there's a tremendous pain, and then they change. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And it really did take that scare for me, because I walk through I walk through life going, everything is possible. I'm an earner. So therefore I'm not stressed that I'm not currently earning, but I was somewhat brainwashing myself into not taking action because I'm an earner. It will all work out for me. It's like, all well and good. That's a piece of the puzzle, but you've got to make it work out for you as well.
Yeah. You have to be both. You have to be, what's called like, positive and optimistic to be successful and make money, but you also have to be what's the word, paranoid. Like, there's this nice mix, and but if you study business and consumerism, you just see that business is not smooth. It's lumpy earnings, especially when you're scaling and growing. So if you understand that, you've got to put away things and be careful and monotonous and very granular when it comes to managing your money, because things can change. So I think if good money management is actually good behavior management, and good behavior management is planning for an uncertain future. But people don't plan for uncertain futures. They plan for certain futures they think are going to be certain. So it's like the biblical story of Noah and the ark. And what happens in that story is that Noah builds this ark like 100 years before it floods. The true story is like 100 years. It's a long time. And of course, all the neighbors in the area like laughing at him and picking on him and like, why are you doing that? It's not even raining. It's not going to rain. And he's building this massive ark. It's just crazy. And all of a sudden, then the storm comes. And because he'd spent 100 years building the ark, he was safe. And no one's building the ark. They're waiting for the storm to come first and drop the first bit of rain.
Yeah, try and pull some resources together while the water's rising.
Totally. That's what happens every day. Every day I see it.
On a slight tangent, they found the Ark in Turkey.
Did they?
Yeah.
Really?
They found it. Yeah, it was buried under
Far out.
like all these kind of mountains, because I don't know if you know much about a period called the Younger Dryas. About 10,500 years ago, the Earth was hit by asteroids, the ice melted instantly, water levels rose by 30%. That's the flood. That's the flood, and it's talked about in the Quran, it's talked about in like so many religions around the world, not just like the Christian Noah's Ark story. And they actually found the Ark. They found it.
There you go.
So there we go, guys. That analogy is real.
There you go. So I mean, I think it's interesting because there's so much to learn about money in parables of various religions and various storytelling and history, of course. And in fact, I think there's a statistic, the money is mentioned in the Bible. Actually, it's 2,000 times.
Wow.
And a lot of that weird, people who are the Christian faith and a lot of other faiths too, they have this strange relationship with money where it's like, I have to be broke to be a good Christian. Right? And no, not one time does it say to do that. So I don't know where it comes up where you think you have to be broke, but I tell you what, there is a lot of power and there's a lot of self-esteem and a lot of confidence in being a producer and a very low consumer. So it's not about being broke. It's about actually consuming a ton less, but multiplying your money and being a big producer and providing value. There's a lot of, that's a very solid place to be spiritually, I think.
Yeah, and just the feeling as well of having more money coming in than going out, it just gives you this sense of fluidity within life. You
can be an effective human in society. As soon as you're not that, it's the opposite. You're sending yourself broke. You can't be effective. You can't think properly. You can't be decisive. You can't get your message out there. You can't provide better value. You have to charge more.
You become selfish.
Totally.
We've all experienced it. Like when there's not enough money in your bank account, all you can think about is you.
That's right.
It's very hard to think about it.
Yeah. And you get commission breath and then you scare everyone off.
Commission breath.
Yeah. You get desperate. Yeah. So, I think for me that happened, like everyone goes through that level of pain. When I was about 23, 24, I had this job in Abu Dhabi. It was an epic job. It was like, my first project was the Formula One circuit in Abu Dhabi. So I was an assistant project manager on some of those projects, assistant development manager on some. It's like the 6th largest project in the world. It's amazing. Anyway, so I'm there and I'm earning reasonably okay money, right? Just below the average at the time because I'm new to this industry and this job. And just me to look after. And I remember my HR manager goes, oh, you need to be in this place, live in this house. I'm like, oh, I need to live in that place, right? So playing status games. So I got this lease for this nice place in Abu Dhabi. Now at the time, it was going through a massive real estate boom and you couldn't get a place. But it so happened our company owned the building, got a deal, and I was like up in this big apartment. Now in Abu Dhabi, in those days, you couldn't really room share with men because it was like against it was frowned upon, right? Because whatever. So I was like, shit, I got to live in this place myself. I couldn't rent out the other room. And it was costing me 200,000 dirhams a year. Now, if you skin that back, it's about $50,000, 60,000 a year. It was like most of my salary. Yeah. Like 2/3 of my salary was going to this rent. And I was like, holy shit, I'm sinking. It was instant. And I was like, fuck. And so I started putting things on. Yeah. So all of a sudden I'm like, I got to break out of this. I tipped myself into that because I listened to someone who was telling me some advice because they were playing status games and I wasn't, but I was led astray. And that happens all the time. So you got to be careful who you take money advice from, right? Do they have what you want? Do they have the character traits? Now, when I did that, I broke the lease, paid off my credit cards and made a vow that I will be so good with my money. So when I moved to Dubai, I did it because it was cheaper rent. I rented out 3 other rooms in the unit because you could do it there. And I rented a Toyota Yaris. And I didn't just rent one, I rented like 7 because I just slammed it because I was driving up and down the road every day. And I just was like frugal. But I was earning. So I wasn't tight. I was just like, I will spend money on things that are going to make me more money or give me more knowledge. But I'm very tight on things that actually don't do that. And I think that was when I changed. I was like, I'm committing to this. And it helped because I built, it helped us get to where we are today for sure. A lot of those behaviors are ingrained in me. It's very hard to change. Alicia, my wife, jokes around it. She says, because, Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah.
So Andrew Tate, he's in Dubai and he's going with his watches. He's worth 300 million. Like, he's worth heaps. And he's a clever guy, right? And so I said, it's not my style. Like, I don't know if I could do content like that. And she goes, what are you talking about? You don't have to be afraid of that. I was like, why? She goes, because, and at the time, she's like, our bed's on the floor, you have holes in your T-shirt, and you work in the cupboard. I was like, brand on point. Great. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't light me up to be... I'm running a Rolex right now, but there's a gift from my dad. Yeah. But I'm not a flashy guy.
Yeah. One of the things that I like on your website, you talk about building legacy wealth. You're trying to set up a life where you're not caught in the rat race of earning. You can do what you want, where you want, when you want. And that's really like the ultimate goal, right? All this kind of physical needs that have been programmed into us through advertising are really just... dreams that symbolize the freedom that we really want.
Yes, yes. And there's this thing called the millionaire paradox. It's a cruel paradox, but it's where all those images you're talking about that are painted on TV, like the yachts and the cars and blah, 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 blah. So that image is singed in people's minds of, that's what millionaires do. Mm-hmm. But what's fascinating is that's kind of like an outcome and end result of a multi-millionaire, typically, in a certain variety. And that's not actually how you make $1 million. So the paradox is when you say to someone, do you want to be a millionaire? They go, yeah, because they conjure up themselves spending $1 million. Mm-hmm. But the reality is to become a millionaire is actually the opposite of that. And that's the paradox. So all these things you see, you actually have to do the opposite to build wealth. And very few people get that. Like holes in T-shirts, driving Yaris's, saving a ton of money, working your ass off in a job and a side hustle and investing it and being intelligent and investing in yourself, that is the path to over 10 to 20 years. That's the path of a millionaire.
So if you were to take yourself back to say like your 18-year-old self, what was your money mindset like that? What was the life, your environment, all that kind of stuff?
Probably up to the age of 16, 17, I didn't have much money. I think it's 18, I would say that in uni, I was kind of washing cars for $100 here and there. And I had a deal with my dad. If I studied, then I get a little bit of money from him. He'd give me a bit of money. That was the deal we had because I just couldn't make any more money. I was doing like 3 semesters a year. I was doing heavyweight degrees, like pre-med, law, like it was flipping full on. So it was very hard to work and make money. So I'd wash cars and mow lawns and chop down trees with a mate of mine. And so I'd have some money because I was living at home. I would spend it because there was nothing I really needed. Like a couple beers, like it wasn't that dear.
You didn't have the long time horizon vision back then?
I was so young that I thought I had time.
Yep.
I wanted to make more money. I was like, flipping heck. I remember washing cars going, all right, I did that for $20. Oh my God. And I was always prepared to work hard, but I wouldn't say I had a plan because I was studying, and that was part of the plan. But that's not such a great money-making thing. I could see the vision of if I get these degrees and get educated, it'll help me later, which incidentally it did to get me certain jobs. But I didn't have a plan for my money necessarily. But what happened to me was this. When I was 16 or 17, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I read a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And I remember, 17, 18, 19 when I read those books, I forget. But that was one of the best lessons I learned from school about money because those books were amazing. So I read the books. So I understood things like buy assets. I got that concept very fast. I'm like, yeah, cool. But how do I make bloody money? And so I guess the first in my 20s, it was just about getting a job, making money, saving, and then I had to kind of cross this bridge of how do I invest it now? And I made some mistakes doing that. But I had those lessons from those books in my mind. I just had to actually roll them out, So I didn't have a clear picture, but I knew kind of where I was going.
How powerful. You just said the best thing you learned about money from school was from this book. It's got nothing to do with
it was my
school.
English teacher that actually referred me to them.
There you go.
So he made a great impact on me.
Yeah.
It just got me learning the money principles early. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that I instantly put them in place. I had to go make money.
Yeah.
Then I had to save some. And as those stories told you, I wasn't so good at that. And then I learned some lessons. And then I started to look at, okay, well, now I've got some savings. What am I going to start investing in? And I picked up a book in the airport once. Now, in Australia, and in my background, I'm a property lawyer. My dad's in property. I was in property marketing. I did real estate development. I'm a real estate agent, fully licensed. Like, my whole background is property. My whole background. Didn't own any. When I was living in Dubai, I was like, I didn't really want to get a 99-year lease. It was just a bit intrepid to go.
99-year.
Yeah, there was not really ownership there, so to speak.
Same as kind of Indonesia. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it was just weird. I didn't want to get a lot of debt because I didn't want to handcuff myself to not making choices at a young age, which I think is instantly a good idea. And everyone else was buying out, like they were just locking themselves into debt. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, no, I think property is the way. So I was like, what am I going to do? So in Australia, everyone loves property, but no one talks about shares. They just don't.
They're like this magical thing that exists in the ether that no one understands.
Magical thing that exists in the ether. Oh, everyone who does that loses money.
Yeah.
It's risky, blah, 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 blah. So that's the paradigm. That's the belief system. And so I had that until I'm like, hang on a sec, like, there's more to this. Like, who am I going to learn off? And I was in the airport and I knew that Warren Buffett, I heard of this guy called Warren Buffett. I'm like, oh, does he look at charts? What is he like? Is it magician stuff? Yeah. Right? Truly. I'm like, well, there's a book on him called The Snowball by a girl called Alice Schroeder. And it's his biography. I'm like, oh, well, that's probably a good place to start. He's the best in the world. Who better to learn from? And I read that book and it was like an instant penny drop moment. I learned that shares are shares of businesses, and businesses are good assets to own, and you can own pieces of the best businesses in the world. They're called shares, and you can buy them for less than what they're worth. And it was just this, like, holy crap, like this is a holy grail. I can take $1,000, you tell me I can take $1,000 and I can buy something that's worth $1 and I can buy it for 50 cents at the moment because the market's way down. Oh, sign me up. Sign me up. I want to get good at buying dollar bills for 50 cents. And so it was this like, this is me. I'm perfect. Don't have to get any debt. I can buy things for half price. The market's the volatility of the market creates opportunity. The real estate market is very consistent. There's not a lot of volatility. So there's not a lot of opportunity. So usually you're buying it for the market rate. It's very hard to buy undervalued real estate. So I just fell in love with it straight away, and that was it. That was my vehicle. Because you got to have in your wealth journey, you got to have a job that you start out with to get cash, to make money, right? But you got to choose a business vehicle to skill up to sell more things than just your time. So that's how you scale your money beyond your time. You have to have a vehicle, like a business. And the third thing you need is you have to have an investment strategy where you're buying assets with your spare cash, with your profits. And you can choose real estate or stocks. That's it. Just for the audience, right? Beautiful. So I chose stocks. And that was the love affair that's lasted since.
Yo, so I just checked our statistics, right? It's not something I do very often, but I was blown away. Our subscriber base has exploded over the last few months. So I want to thank all of you who have clicked that subscribe button. You show up to the episodes every single week. You support, you participate, and you take action for yourself. And for all of you who haven't subscribed yet, you want to be part of the club, go ahead and locate that button on whatever platform you're listening to this on. The subscribe button is usually pretty bright. If you want to be notified every time we drop a valuable episode, and while you're on a roll, why don't you go ahead and leave behind a 5-star rating? Let us know we're producing value, because we're going to continue showing up and doing our thing every single week, bringing on high value guests and sharing unordinary stories of how they got there. So if you're an action taker and you don't want to miss out on an opportunity to gain valuable knowledge that's going to propel you towards your success, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and let's get stuck back into this episode. So I want to know, when you had that aha moment, you read The Snowball, you're like, fuck, stocks, I can print money. What was your first actions? Where did you start? Because I know there's lots of people that have read the books and then they're like, oh, I'm so pumped up. Then it goes in the wardrobe, right?
Yep.
And no action's taken. So what was your first play?
Yeah, awesome. That's really good to bring that. So true. Now, just as a trait to help people move through this, you want to be someone who's an action taker, not just a learner. And so my friend Fraser Brooks, he says, if you're just a learner, it's like just stepping with your left foot. You just go around in circles. But if you're just an action taker, it's your right foot, you go around in circles. You have to be a learner and a doer. And if you do that, you walk straight, right? Left foot, right foot. So I'm actually a learner doer. So I'll go and read a book, and I've read halfway through books, found something amazing and implemented it and not even finished the book. I'm just so interested in implementing. So what you said happened to me where I read the book. I'm like, but how? Where do I start? What do I do? How do I? What do I? When do I? So I saw a financial planner or advisor in Dubai, and he kind of put me on the path to a fund of a fund, blah, blah, blah. I had no control over it. It wasn't a broker account. It wasn't buying individual. It was not what I wanted. But I started there and I made some mistakes and I got out of that. But I'm like, well, now what do I do? So when I moved back to Australia and I had the Australian banking system with me, I set up an online share broker account with ANZ Bank. In those days, there was no, I'm talking 15 years ago, there was no Robinhood, there was no Stake, there was no Raise, there was no online brokers you run from an app. There was no, iPhone was still pretty new, relatively, right? There was none of that. And so I had to go to the bank and they put me through put my passport, license, it was a process. And I put a physical posted in the post physical application to open a broker account with my bank. So I did that. That was painful. And then I had to work out how to use the online broker. There was no YouTube clips on it or anything like that. I just worked it out. I just played with it, right? It was pretty easy. That's how much money I want. I put it in the broker account and that's the stock I want to buy and I buy it. So what I learned from a little bit of reading Warren Buffett books is I wanted to buy good quality businesses. And at the time, I wanted some passive income. So I wanted a business that paid a dividend. That's where a business pays out some of its profits.
That's how you became the passive income prince.
That's the beginning of the passive income prince. So I was like, how do I become the prince? So I was like, okay, well, what type of businesses pay a good dividend? And in Australia, you can actually get dividends that are tax-free. Okay. For another time, another lesson, but you can. So I was like, well, what businesses are going to be around? What businesses are hard to kill? What's going to, and I was like, banks. Flipping heck, man, you're not going to beat a bank, right? And so I'm like, well, Westpac Bank, that's the biggest bank at the time in Australia. I'm like, I'm going to buy shares in that. So I bought shares in Westpac Bank for $2,000, and that's how I started my journey. What's really cool is that was my first purchase, and that's how you start. But you got to build it. You can't just put $2,000 and then become a millionaire. You know, my strategy was I want to make money, save some, and put some more into shares. Buy some more Westpac Bank shares, right? And just repeat that process until my portfolio grew. Anyway, just on that small amount that I'd invested, I got paid my first dividend check. And in those days, they also sent you in the post a physical check, a paper check. And it came to our place and it was in an envelope. And I was like, flipping heck, Westpac Bank sent me, I open it up. And it was a check. It's like dividends, $90. I was like, money grows on trees. I felt that. I'm like, money grows. This is amazing. And I thought back to the times when I washed a car for $20 and it took me like an hour. I was like, I just made $90 by doing nothing. So I had a lot of gratitude for it. And it didn't matter to me then how fast I was going to get there or who was doing what or who'd made more money than me. I couldn't give a shit. The only thing that I cared about was like, I need to plant more of these money trees. This makes sense to me. It's simple. I got this. That's how it happened.
And then it's just a growth process. Because one thing that you teach that I think is really impactful is the idea of compound interest, right? And how over time that, those accumulations of those $90, you can reinvest them. And then plus your principal amount actually grows in value.
Yes.
So those checks get bigger and bigger over time.
Yeah, that's true. The compound effect.
Yeah.
So there's a guy called Darren Hardy. I actually met him in Hawaii at a conference. And he came and did a talk for us and trained us. He wrote the book called The Compound Effect. So the compound interest is what Albert Einstein coined it as the eighth wonder of the world because it is so powerful, right? But Darren Hardy talks about the compound effect being everything. So how we're compounding, how you compound skills leads to wealth. How you compound your body fat if you eat the wrong foods. The compound effect or compound interest is growth upon previous growth. And that accelerates at an exponential rate. Exponential means it builds and progressively builds more and more and more like a snowball the longer it rolls down the hill. So if you leave that snowball to roll down an infinite hill, it grows infinitely, right? Now, we don't have infinite time. We have 90 years on Earth or whatever it might be. So when you start out investing, either on your skills, but let's talk about money and shares and so forth, then the gains that you experience on the gains exponentially grow if the business is growing. So for the audience, let's do this.
I want to get out Money Smart and we can give them an example.
Okay, well, so the first thing that people have to understand, they go, oh, compound interest. Compound interest. Interest is when you get paid interest from the bank when your money is in a term deposit. That's interest. That's bank interest. Now, your interest upon your previous interest is the compound effect. So this still works even if you have your money in the bank. Okay, it does. That's why they call it compound interest and not compound effect. But when it's in shares, what's cool about that is let's say you buy shares in Westpac Bank. Now, there's two things that happen that make that compound well. Number one, if the business grows, so Westpac Bank as a business grows its profits over time, the value of the shares grows. Right? Year on year on year. So that compounds the value of the shares. So the growth compounds. But also because it pays dividends that progressively get more and more and more with profits, your cash flows grow as well, which you reinvest back into buying more shares. So you have a wonderful compounding machine where if it's in bank interest, it's getting like 4%, 3.5% to 4% compounded. And the value of your money is falling through inflation. But when you own shares and assets, the value of the business rises. Plus, the dividends get reinvested progressively and they go up in value. So shares are a wonderful compounding machine. But what's powerful about it is if you have the patience to leave it, and very few people have the patience to leave it, but when you have the patience to leave it, and let's say you're using the compound interest calculator that Jack's got this compound interest calculator. You can go to Google. Yeah. And you put in Money Smart. Just put in compound interest calculator. At the top, if you're in Australia, it says Money Smart government. What's it called? moneysmart.gov.au. moneysmart.gov.au, right? You can do it. And you put in there like a zero, so let's say you're broke, and you put in a regular deposit of say $500 a month. Okay, now most people can do that. Well, if you can't, you know you got an income problem. So go work weekends and Uber and flip and get your income up, right? Pretty easy.
Get a Dash account, start delivering food.
Yeah, right. So what's really funny, there's a meme going around on that topic. There's a meme going around. It says, how to make money, the front of the book. And the guy turns out, work. And that's the
Can't be
inconvenient
that
truth.
Simple.
Can't be that simple. It's crazy, right? So anyway, so let's say you're working to make extra and you put this in. Now the deposit frequency, $500 a month. Deposit frequency is monthly. Compound frequency is annually because your shares or whatever it is you're investing in, bank deposit, whatever, is compounding annually at a rate. So if you're putting it in the bank in a term deposit, the rate's probably about 4% at the moment. You can do that one. Or if it's in some sort of broad-based index fund like the S&P 500 or whatever, okay, I'm not giving you any financial advice, but they often can compound at 10% historically, on average, 10% a year. Okay, that's dividends and growth combined. That's just how much you're going to grow in that index fund. Now, if you did that for 25 years and you're very diligent, you didn't rob yourself, okay, you're $500 a month, and you did that, at the end of that 25 years, you'd have $590,000. It's $125 a week. It's nothing, right? But if you actually get after it, which most people can, and you put in $2,000 a month,
it's $500 a week.
$500 a week. Yep, that's $2.3 million.
At the end of how many years?
25 years.
25 years.
So if you're a 20-year-old, and you do it till you're 45, you get 2.3 million of future money, all right, minus inflation. But here's where it gets really interesting. A lot of people, if they really wanted to, $500 a week, that's fair, 25 grand a year. If you're 30 and you hold it for 35 years, you're 65, it's 6.5 million.
Wow.
If you do that as a 20-year-old and you held it for 50 years until you're 70 at $500 a week, it's $27 million.
27 fucking million. There's not much you can't buy with 27 million.
Yeah, and even if you factor in inflation, it's still like, if we put inflation there at 5% even, it's still 5 million. It's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about that though, see, like that sounds all well and good and you're like, oh fuck, how am I going to accumulate 27 million over 50 years? You don't have to. That's the beautiful thing about it.
That's right.
You know, and this is the thing that really hit me. So over that, 25 years or 50 years you've got put in here.
Well, that's a 5%. If you put in the bigger one, pass me the phone back.
You can drive it.
So if we put in here, 10% earnings, 50 years of a 20-year-old to 70, that's a long time. I don't know if people can actually do that because they get, there's things happen in life. But of that, how much did you put in versus what your money generated?
Okay, guys, just to recap. So The total amount in this particular account is just shy of $28 million. And then of that 28 million, you have only contributed 1.2 million. You've only had to muster up 1.2 million over 50 years. And that's the beautiful thing about compound interest. I'm going to show it to the camera. I don't know if you can see it, but you should be on moneysmart.gov.au yourself and just play around with this. Like, try and train your brain to see the potential there is in this world. Like, money is all around us. It just takes us kind of taking our hands out of our pockets and grabbing it. So I'm going to show it to the camera real quick. So that dark blue line is the money you've contributed, and that light blue line that's fucking way up above it is what your money has done for you. So you put your money to work, right? Yes. While you're off earning, building businesses, you're still hustling, you're still doing the things that light you up, you're still following your passions, all that kind of stuff. The money that you're making, a percentage of your money is going to work while you sleep. Now, I open this podcast with, if you don't learn to make money while you sleep, you work till you die. That is very true, because we see it in retirees all the time. You know, they get to the end of their working career and they're like, fuck, I wish I'd put something away. Daddy government, please take care of me because I don't have anything for myself. All right, you don't want to find yourself in that position.
I think the lesson too that you can take away from this is that we only used $500 a week. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that people turn their nose up at small money, and that's what prevents them getting side hustles and DoorDash and Uber. Like, they're like, why? I don't want to like spend my life working. I'm like, look, there's got to be a plan for it. So like, when we got into our network marketing side hustle like 9 years ago, the objective was an extra $500 a week, because I knew in my mind what that could do when it's compounded into assets properly and held. It's very powerful. So I never turned my nose up at the chance to make extra money. And that's why I've been able to, because I was not too good for it. I had gratitude for every bit of money, and I do still today. Money's a beautiful, powerful thing in the right hands. And if you respect it, it will respect you. But few people respect it. Yeah,
that hit home like heavily for me when you said that, because that was the problem that I came up against. I would not return a pair of pants that didn't fit me that I paid $140 for, because I'm like, fuck, it's $140, who cares? And then that rippled out into my entire life, my entire business, right?
Sure.
You know, so you got to have respect for money, because money is the fuel, it is the oxygen.
Yeah.
You know, that's the world, like in some way or another, like you talked about, the Bible mentions money, like thousands of times, and that's because it is somewhat of a measuring stick. It's a unit of exchange for us to impact the world, for us to, you know, provide for our loved ones, to express our gratitude to people. You know, It's a way for us to experience the full breadth of what the human experience is. Well,
if you think about it, what's really interesting about money these days, it's kind of like can I read what money actually... I think this is really powerful, actually.
Please.
Let's do this, because this will blow you away, I think. So I have a Telegram channel where I put like money tips in each day. It's just a free channel. And I put this in there the other day, and I read it. It was a conversation between Elon Musk and someone else. Ready? Here, where is it? Come on. Here, it's up here somewhere. Please be here. Please be here. What is it?
Can I put the link to the Telegram chat below?
Yeah, you can put it there. Yeah,
I'll chuck it in below if you want to get some bite-sized nuggets from this handsome man.
There's definitely bite-sized. Here we go. Here it is. This is bite-sized nuggets in there. This is what I put in there. Ready? More than 90% of all money, more than $50 trillion appearing in your account, ready, exists only on computer servers. The sum total of all coins and banknotes is less than 6 trillion. Okay, so most of the money is just digits on a screen. Check this out. Ready? So what money actually is just a set of heterogeneous databases with vast amounts of legacy code still using COBOL on the mainframes in batch mode, and is created by banks when they make loans through a process called fractional reserve banking. Scaling your wealth boils down to scaling the value you bring to the world, to others, and getting a larger share of your COBOL legacy code. That's what money actually is. Can you believe that? It's flipping this code.
It's IOUs.
It's I talk about this in my first book. It's actually like what you said. Mm-hmm. It's a measure of unit of labor. So like in Australia, the minimum wage I think is like $30 an hour or $25 an hour, right? Minimum. Like for telemarketing
for an adult, maybe, I don't know. You can earn like $12.50 at Macca's
as a kid, right?
Yeah.
Sure, but like let's say it's $20.
Yeah.
So what money actually is a unit of time. Mm-hmm. It's a unit of labor time. So when I give you $20, I'm giving you 1 hour as a telemarketer. Now, you can either go and work as a telemarketer for 20 hours, for an hour and get $20, or it's a store of labor value.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are storing up money, they're storing up the time that they don't have to spend in a job they don't like. So when you're going out to shop and buy things, if you're an impulse buyer, think to yourself, I could get that handbag for $3,000, but how many hours would I have to work in my job that I don't like to do that? Money's time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can change that mindset you have around that, you'll find that money's time, money's also value. So like, for example, if I give you something of value, like a perfect example, I was getting my hair cut yesterday, especially for this episode. It was yesterday, Dave, all right? Anyway, I'm in the barbershop and I'm giving my barber value. Okay. And the value I was giving him was like, look, if you're in the shop and he owns the barbershop, he's an awesome young guy. And I was like, man, if I own this barbershop, I'll be like, I'll do this reel and do this and like introduce people to this person and show me your product. I was showing him on like what to do to bring more people to his barbershop, make the best barbershop in Australia, right? I do this. He's like, flipping heck, that's awesome, man. Thanks so much. So I'm giving him value about how to market some of his shop, right? Using social media. Anyway, he goes, here, and he chucks me like a hair product. Mm-hmm. Called Vuk. That's his brand. And it's worth like, I don't know, $40 or something. So I conjured that. Think about that. I conjured up $40 because I needed hair product, but I conjured it up by giving value. Now, when that came to me, I then paid for the haircut, which is $40. So if I'm getting that product back in my hands because of the value I gave, that would have cost me 40 and the haircut's 40, I'm square. It didn't cost me anything, that haircut. So he's getting value. He's giving me value back and I'm giving him value back. And that's all money is. It's a value exchange. And I've seen my wife conjure up money. Like she's been giving value to this lady once, getting her makeup done. And she gave her so much knowledge and expertise and value in that 1 hour that the lady said, oh, don't worry about paying for the car park. I'll catch that. It was like $25. So I'm like, to my wife, Alicia, I'm like, you just conjured up $25. And I think what you said at the start, people have this objection to making money. They have this paradigm that says you need money to make money. And that's a lot of rubbish because I just explained 2 examples where I didn't use money to create money. Does that make sense?
Sense.
And I think that's a really good mindset for people to adopt.
Yeah. And it all ties into the compound effect as well. Like you didn't show up one day and just go, all right, I'm going to dribble some value on this guy and he's going to give me product.
That's right.
You've spent time accumulating knowledge, which then manifested itself in value you could give.
Totally.
The exact same way that you spend time accumulating micro amounts of money so that it can provide value back to you in large sums.
Totally. Yep. On the value exchange of money, you either have to give a skill or a knowledge piece that you own, some experience, let's call it, to help someone solve a problem. And they'll pay you for that. That's the value exchange. Okay. Or you have to have a ton of cash, which is the saved up value, and buy assets. That's the value exchange. You're exchanging cash for the asset. You can't make money in this world without exchanging value. If you are, and people get seduced into this all the time, you're in a Ponzi scheme, you're in a pyramid scheme, or you're in some sort of scam. There has to be a value exchange. Like, what's this doing for the world? There has to be win-win. If there's not, that's a problem. And I think if people adopted that philosophy, they'd be better investors, and all of them would have avoided Bitcoin. Yeah, because it doesn't do anything for anyone, right? Not to get into a debate about it, but there's no real value exchange. Yeah, and that tells me avoid.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff that has to change in order for Bitcoin to have real world lasting value.
Yeah, and part of that too is it doesn't actually solve immediately problematic problems. I just told you that most of the money's already on a computer. Like. It's just, so I think those types of philosophies, as you learn about money and investing and so forth, very rarely is good investing and money management like high IQ numbers-based stuff. It's not complex. Most of the stuff that you want to adopt and learn about money is philosophical, which is good because philosophy is easy to understand, hard to practice because it requires you to be a stoic human being. Someone who doesn't care about the outside noise, doesn't care about what people think about them, has their own, they follow the signal, not the noise. But most people out there, the reason they get into money problems is because they're playing status games, because they're trying to impress people they don't like with things they don't need. They're trying to, what else are they doing to not make money? They're not solving, well, they're not doing things that are good for the community. Okay. So like it's philosophical, it's stoic. It's, if you study stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, being a good human being typically is going to make you richer than trying to run after the fast cash flow.
Yeah. And I noticed that shift in like when I was building out my business plans, rather than setting financial goals, you measure the impact of your service. Like for our podcast production agency, right? Rather than measuring, all right, by this date, I want it to be at this financial level per month. You can say, all right, by this date, we want to have launched 12 podcasts in top 100. Now that equates to a certain amount of digits in my bank account, but it is a lot more exciting for me and the people that I'm serving than just going, by this date, we're going to be making this much per month.
Totally. Yeah. That's so true. And that's why I struggle personally with what's your financial goal this year about how much money do you want to make? I couldn't give a shit. I'm not focused there. I'm focused on inputs. What you have to be focused on or you have to do is you got to marry the process and divorce the outcome. And if you can marry the process, you'll fall in love with the journey. Like what we're doing now is part of the journey, right? And so there's hard parts of the journey, like writing that book. That was hard. I got to sit down and sometimes you got to do the work, right? And the work is still important, but you've got to fall in love with almost all parts of it, even the stuff that sucks sometimes, right? And so I think people don't do that. They get stuck to the outcome, and that's why they have problems with their money. Definitely.
Yeah. Real quick, before we wrap up the show, I want you to think back to a point in today's episode where you had that aha moment, where you got absolute certainty. You're like, I know exactly what I need to do now moving forward. And then I want you to remember how you found out about this show. Was it on someone's story? Was it a conversation with a friend maybe? Then I want you to go ahead and pay it forward. Because the way that the law of reciprocity works is that by introducing someone to something of value, they will always equate you with that value. Now, you guys know I don't run ads to this show. Everything is grown 100% organically, word of mouth. Now, if you want to play a part in the growth of this show, bigger guests, better stories, more content, and you want to gift that aha moment to more people all across the world, go ahead and pay it forward. It costs you nothing, but it could be priceless to someone who needs it. So if you were to have dinner with a person or a group of people, alive or dead, who would they be and what would you talk about?
Oh my God, alive or dead. I tell you what, I would love to have dinner with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, his business partner. I'd love to do that. That's worth like $5 or $6 million to do that actually today. Yeah. I mean, without getting carried away with spirituality, sitting down with Jesus wouldn't be too bad either. Figuring that one out. And also sitting down with like some of the greatest leaders, like Nelson Mandela and, this is every single leader that's come before us, Martin Luther King, all those dead leaders. All the war heroes, Napoleon. I mean, I'd love to sit down with them.
It'd be a big restaurant.
But I mean, if we're being like that, that's who I'd like to sit down with. But if someone's alive, I think the Warren Buffett, his philosophies on life, he and Charlie, there's so much to be garnered. They're like the granddaddies of capitalism, and a lot of people have created value from those lives. So I would sit down with them, I think, immediately.
What would the conversation be like?
I talk to them about my portfolio. They give me some ideas, and not of what to buy, but the philosophy behind what I'm doing. They would probably, I get a photo with them and put it on the gram and get all these followers. No, I think I'd take Alicia and we'd sit. It would just be great to be in the presence of greatness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what would come, but it'd be a cool book to write after that.
Oh, 100%. Just to be part of the conversation, because they're probably talking about concepts that we couldn't even, like, they're not even in our consciousness, Well, from what I've gathered,
they're very simple ideas that they live by. And
they're just
that's
disciplined with them.
Well, that's what makes them geniuses, because geniuses, and Albert Einstein said this, any idiot can make things more complex. It takes a genius to make things more simple. And I think that the genius of them is that their ideas are so simple, and the way they live their life. I mean, Warren still has the same breakfast. Like, there's beauty in that. It's the stoic life. And I think that is what people need more of. It's not complexity. I think we're not good at dealing with that. We're complex enough. It's the simple things. And I think that would be the profound experience you'd have if you sat in on that conversation with people that you thought were, where their IQ could boil soup. It's just actually the simplicity of it that makes them geniuses. So I think, yeah.
The IQ could boil soup.
Yeah, it could. They don't call him the Oracle for no reason. He's obviously very clever, but it's cleverness in simple things. And I think that I've taken that away from their lives the most.
Yeah.
And that's why when people say to me stuff like this crypto or that, like there's so much going on in the financial world or the world in general, people get so overwhelmed because they're not living simply. They're living complex. Like they're doing too many things. They're doing too many. It's complicated because they think that complex is the answer, but complex fails in simple scales. And I think that is what I love the most about those guys.
Complex fails, simple scales. Yeah, that hits home. I've spent way too many years thinking that if I have my hand in 10 pies, one of them's going to pay off.
Yeah.
But what really ends up happening is all the pies get cold before anything manages to happen.
Totally. There's this... If you end up putting the Telegram link in there where people go to get the free tips, I put a tip in the other day. I won't go through it now, but on that topic of doing too many things, the 10 things, I learned from Warren Buffett the rule of 5 and 25, and I'll put a link to that story in there. So if they go in there, read the story because it's probably one of the most powerful money moves you can make is to actually focus more around one or two good things and drop the others.
What a beautiful open loop. All right. I'll drop all Lloyd's links down below. Hope you guys have gotten value. I've enjoyed my time. I enjoy every minute I spend with you. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Hey, pleasure. And I'm honored to be on. Thanks for asking me.
Fantastic.
I loved it.
Go check out Money Grows on Trees on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You're not on YouTube, no?
You can go Lloyd Ross on YouTube. You'll find some stuff. Yeah.
We're working on getting his podcast visual. We're working on it. He'll come to his senses sooner or later. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time.
You bet.
Adios.
Awesome.
Thanks, money makers. I'll see you next week. Love.